Hello, how are you? My name is Flo, and this is the Grape Jelly Library, but we are not in the library today. We are in the parlor, and that could only mean one thing. Another episode of Where Are They Buried and How Did They Die by Todd Benoit. I'm going to try to do this video pretty quick because now my husband has turned the heat on in the house, and I fear that at any moment that fireplace is going to kick on and it's going to make a ruckus in the background, and it is just going to ruin this video. So I'm going to be mindful of my time. Yes, we are going to do another episode of this book, which I am loving. I hope you guys are loving too. We're going to do today one just sporadic. I'll just open any page, and that's who we're going to learn about. And then I have a bullseye. I have a guy I am aiming for because I think he has a birthday this month, and we should celebrate his life and his legacy. All right, so first we are going to learn about, how about I landed on that. How do you like that? All right, Greats of Literature, Philosophy, and the Arts. No, I don't want to do that. That's boring. Let's try again. All right, let's try again. Oh, by the way, two things. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so now. Boop. It's that easy, and I would so appreciate it. And the other thing is, I have a special guest coming to the library, and you do not want to miss that. So stay tuned to my channel. It's going to come up. It's going to happen pretty quick. So just be on your guard because, yeah, I'm a little scared. But we're going to do it. I better wear my sneakers that day because I might have to run. All right, we are going to, you know, my choices are Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart or Buck Owens. And I believe no matter how sophisticated you are, we all have a little bit of hillbilly in us. And so I'm going with Buck Owens. Okay, August 12th, 1929 to March 25th, 2006. The sharecropping family of Alvis Owens once owned a mule named Buck. And one day, 6-year-old Alvis announced that from that day forward, his name was to be Buck. It stuck, and nobody called him Alvis again. Well, I did not know that. How many years have I spent growing up watching Hee Haw, and I never knew that. After he received a mandolin for Christmas at 13, music quickly consumed him, and Buck hooked up with a honky-tonk band, Max Skillet Lickers. Throughout the 1950s, Buck, who was married with a couple of children by now, supported his family with session work and produced a number of singles, but they all fizzled. As his music aspirations foundered, Buck bought a 1/3 share of a tiny Washington state radio station and resorted to selling advertising and spinning records to keep food on the table. If you had a really good radio, you could pick us up in the station parking lot, he recalled years later. In time, though, a persistent Buck perfected his songwriting ability, and a parade of classics followed, including I've Got a Tiger by the Tail and Together Again. By the time the Beatles recorded a version of his Act Naturally, and Ray Charles weighed in with a rendition of Buck's own Cryin' Time, Buck wasn't looking back. Crafting a Telecaster-driven roar and edgier sound of the day, Buck's new Bakersfield sound reshaped the country scene. With his streamlined, fresh yet unadorned style, he became the leading country music star of the 1960s, at one point releasing 15 consecutive #1 singles. Opposite Roy Clark, Buck co-hosted the Hee Haw variety television show from 1969 to 1986, which he later acknowledged as a colossal professional blunder. Now, I wouldn't say that because I'm 51 years old and I will always watch Hee Haw. I grew up on it. I love it. Okay, it's not a blunder. The hokey and dim-witted program of cornball humor completely sullied his hard-earned reputation as a serious songwriter and performer, and perhaps even worse, younger audiences grew up knowing Buck as nothing more than a comedic country rube clad in overalls, strumming a red and white blue guitar in a fake cornfield. Hey, Buck, that was my childhood. Don't be so hard on yourself. I loved it. In 1978, a few years after his beloved friend and bandmate Don Rich was killed in a motorcycle accident, the devastated artist quit the music business entirely except for the Hee Haw tapings. I think my music life ended when Rich did. Oh yeah, I carried on and I existed, but the real joy and love, the real lightning and thunder was gone forever, he confessed 25 years later. In those spare years, Buck indulged in a slew of business interests, including TV and radio stations, until a new enthusiasm was forged and neo-traditionalists, Dwight Yoakam, coaxed him back to recording and touring. In 1988, the pair recorded a chart-topping duet version of Streets of Bakersfield, a venture of which Buck was particularly proud was Crystal Palace, his own restaurant, nightclub, and museum, which opened in 1996 and where he performed dozens of impromptu gigs a year. On a Friday night, On a Friday night, after enjoying a favorite meal of chicken fried steak, he declined to sit in on the night's music show after explaining to band members he wasn't feeling well. But before leaving the premises, a group of fans introduced themselves and explained they'd traveled all the way from Oregon on the chance that perhaps he would be joining the house band on stage that night. Predictably, the 76-year-old returned inside and performed an hour-long set, telling the audience, if somebody comes all that way, I'm gonna give it my best shot. I might groan and squeak, but I'll see what I can do. Returning home later that night, Buck died in his sleep of heart failure. Buck rests at Green Lawn Southwest Cemetery in Bakersfield, California. Grave directions: enter the cemetery at 2739 Panama Lane. Turn at the first right and proceed past the maintenance shed. Buck's beautiful family mausoleum will be on your right, and you won't miss it. You know, that's why I love the story of a human being, especially a kind human being. Yeah, so now let's go back to the index. Let's hope they have one. Yes, they have one. Okay, so let's go here and let's head straight to the P's. M-N-O-P. Do you know who I'm going for? P. Last name starts with P. Ooh, Elvis Presley is in here. Let's see how long this one takes. We were actually going for page 367. And we are referencing a gentleman by the name of Thomas Petty. October 20th, 1950 to October 2nd, 2017. Tom Petty was never much of a student, and after briefly meeting Elvis Presley, in a life-altering moment, I'll say, when he was 11, about the only thing that was on his adolescent mind was getting himself in a band and getting the heck out of Dodge, or at least out of Gainesville, Florida. At 16, Tom said goodbye to high school, and after a few spare years scrounging for gigs around the Florida bar scene, he packed up with his Mudcrutch bandmates, and the quintet split for Los Angeles. But that band broke up soon after reaching California, and it wasn't until 1976 that Tom found his rock and roll stride with the album Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, especially on the strength of its lead single and perpetual concert jam favorite, Breakdown. You know what I'm talking about. Subsequent singles from the group's follow-up effort, You're Gonna Get It, love that album, love it, such as Listen to Her Heart and I Need to Know, cemented the band's durability. Over the next decades, Tom wrote dozens of hard-headed yet sentimental anthems that melded radio-ready rock with a stubborn down-home heritage written for the workaday everyman. With a pronounced nasal drawl that yielded a grainy and unpretty voice by any classical measure, Tom spoke for the tight-lipped underdogs and the irritable outsiders, while his soundtracks by turns veered between ringing folk rock and twanging country rock, as well as an occasional clever and uncategorizable arrangement such as Don't Come Around Here No More, steering clear of elaborate showmanship in concert. Tom let loose his full quiver of crowd pleasers, including Free Falling and Learning to Fly, while tossing in extended psychedelia-tinged jams too. Living Alone After a Divorce. Too bad he didn't know my number. During the 1990s, Tom fell into heroin addiction, which he overcame through rehab before a second marriage that was presided over by none other than ordained minister, rock star Little Richard. Earning a marvelous freedom to do whatever he wanted with his career after a long and steady cycle of recording and touring, in 2008, Tom shocked everyone by reforming Mudcrutch for a new album and tour. Then, back with the Heartbreakers in 2014, he brought the band to a surprising milestone when, finally, after nearly 40 years together, their new album, Hypnotic Eye, became their first #1 release. Back on the road in 2017, Tom said, I'm thinking it may be the last trip around the country. We're all on the backside of our 60s. I don't want to spend my life on the road. Tom died at 66, and it was first reported that a heart attack had done him in. But 3 months later, upon the release of the official findings of the medical examiner, it came to light that his death was due to an accidental drug overdose as a result of mixing medications, including opioids. Tom was cremated, and his ashes remain with his family. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But guess what, guys? I have to do this. I have to, because my beloved everlasting love follows Mr. Petty. Can you see? Woo-hoo. Yeah, I'm right there, right? I'm there, so it's going to be a little bit of a long-winded video, but what are you going to do? Let's do this. We have nothing to do. Today is a Monday. It is probably around 8 p.m. and I don't have work tomorrow, so yeah, let's do this. Empty. We're going to need a refill. Okay. January 8th, 1935 to August 16th, 1977, the worst day of my life. Born in Tupelo, Mississippi, Elvis Presley had a childhood similar to many other poor whites in the South. His father was a laborer who owned barely enough for the family to live on, and nowhere did they seem to be any hope for or indication of the kind of fame Elvis would later find. The family moved to Memphis, and after graduating high school, young Elvis got a job as a $41 per week truck driver. A respectable enough career, that is, until Sam Phillips came along. Under Sam's direction at Sun Studios in 1954, the budding superstar recorded his first single, That's All Right, Mama, and with his sexy sneer, suggestive hip gyrations, and breathy vocals, Elvis was an instant phenomenon. I'll say. As the eye of a musical hurricane, he turned the establishment on its ear with one hit after another, eventually recording more than 700 songs. Go, baby. By the time of his death, he had sold some 600 million records. 600 million records. That's what my baby was capable of. All right. Now, more than 40 years after his death, the number is beyond counting. Fabulous. But Elvis's appeal wasn't just limited to his swiveling hips and rockabilly sound. He had personal charm and bedroom eyes that Hollywood could hardly ignore. After a 2-year stint in the Army, fostering a clean all-American image, he married the daughter of a military officer and gave up live concerts with the intent of leading a quiet family life. Are you kidding me? But Elvis was soon persuaded to sign a movie contract, and he made My Ghosts Fell. That's all right. To sign a movie contract, and he made a series of films, some of which are almost painfully unwatchable. Hell no! How could they say that about my beloved? Each and every one of them is a treasure to behold. In Elvis's defense, though, his charisma made a few of them, such as Jailhouse Rock and Viva Las Vegas, genuinely entertaining. Have they never seen Kissing Cousins? Fun in Acapulco? It happened at the World's Fair? Roustabout? Are they kidding me? In 1968, aware that his music career was foundering, Elvis went back on the road and jump-started the beginning of his tragic end with a period that bordered on self-parody at the burlesque Las Vegas Elvis. In rhinestone jumpsuits topped with sequin capes and them sons of bees. An overweight, drowsy-looking, mumbling, and sweaty incarnation of his former vibrant self held on stage court over swooning fans in more than 1,000 performances. How rude. At the start of this period, his returns to the stage were often exciting, over-the-top productions, but 8 years later, he wallowed in the depths of a sagging 275-pound caricature of Elvis the Pelvis. A pitiful reminder of the pitfalls of fame. You know what? This better get better, or I will rip this page out of the book as I speak right now. He was 242 pounds when he passed away, and Elvis the Pelvis, he said, was childish. And I agree. It better get better. A new round of performances was scheduled for August in 1977, and as usual, they quickly sold out. That's right. In the week before the concerts began, Elvis hung around his Graceland mansion. He read his Bible, good boy, swam in the pool, you go, played with his daughter, what a good dad, ate cheeseburgers, let him have it, played racquetball, and took his ungodly regime of assorted pills, which were prescribed by a doctor with, oh boy. After a 10 p.m. visit to the dentist for 2 porcelain fillings, Elvis returned home and, unable to sleep, batted a racquetball around with his cousin Billy Smith. Until about 4 a.m., Elvis then joined his current girlfriend, Ginger Alden, in bed and reportedly read for a couple of hours. She fell asleep around 6 and upon waking at 9, saw that Elvis still hadn't slept. In his best blue pajamas, he excused himself to the bathroom with the book The Scientific Search for the Face of Jesus, and that's the last time the 42-year-old king of rock and roll was seen alive. Around 2 that afternoon, Ginger found a bloated Elvis with the book beside him, slumped in a fetal position on the brown shag carpet of his bathroom floor, and he wasn't breathing. Elvis had left the building. A medical examiner declared that Elvis had died of cardiac arrhythmia. In layman's terms, he had a heart attack, and there was no indication of drug abuse of any kind. However, when the laboratory studies of his autopsy specimens were finally completed by toxicologists at the University of Utah in January 1978, 11 drugs, all consistent with medical treatment, were found to be present in the singer's system at the time of his death. 4 of the drugs, all commonly known sedatives, painkillers, and depressants, were present in significant amounts. The remaining 7 drugs were said to be present in insignificant amounts, and one of them, morphine, had been trotted out as supposed proof that Elvis overdosed. However, toxicologists maintain that the trace amounts of morphine found in his system were solely a byproduct of the codeine sedatives. Elvis never actually ingested morphine. Well, not immediately prior to his death anyway. I'm going to redact that sentence. Although there were a host of drugs in his system, Elvis actually died of heart disease. Everybody knows he had an enlarged heart. Though he would have been better off if he had laid off the drugs, Elvis had a weak cardiovascular system, and what he really needed was to lay off the cheeseburgers and play a lot more racquetball. Are you kidding me? Dressed in a white suit, Elvis and his 3,600 copper casket were interred in a crypt at Forest Lawn Cemetery for a short time, but in October 1977, 2 deranged fans attempted some manner of body snatching, and Elvis was removed from Forest Hills and buried at his 14-acre Graceland estate across town. Grave directions, and I've seen it myself. I've seen it for myself. Just get yourself to Memphis, Tennessee, and follow the tour buses to Elvis Presley Boulevard and Graceland. You won't miss it. At Graceland, everything Elvis is on display. But if you can do without the memorabilia sideshow and wish only to pay respects at the King's grave, simply arrive before 9 a.m. to gain free entry. And later, with the $29 admission you saved, thrill your family and friends with garish moments and mementos, such as a shot glass or pot holder available from the gift shop. Are you kidding me? You could have done better, Todd. Didn't your mother tell you if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all? Let me tell you, I've been to Graceland 4 times, and I have said this to my son. Son, when I pass away, and you need some motherly advice, this is what you need to do. You need to go to YouTube and you need to type in Evel Knievel interview. And whatever that man says, that would be my advice to you. Don't get on a motorcycle and jump 30-some buses. Don't do that. But aside from the daredevil stuff, he is a highly intelligent man. Listen to what he has to say. He's grounded and he has common sense. Now, with that said, there is a saying that says, the grass is always greener on the other side. However, son, are you listening to me, Kev? Are you listening to your mother? No, the grass is not greener on this other side, but the grass is always greener in Memphis, Tennessee. Until my next video, friends, I love you. Be well, be good, and I'll read to you